In the quiet town of Ibadan, where the hum of life floated through the dusty streets, Adeolu sat at the head of the dining table, a place he rarely occupied with ease. His eyes scanned the room, noticing every detail, the fading walls, the clinking of glasses, the tense silence. It was Morayo's birthday, and despite the traditional festivities, a sense of unease lingered. "Daddy, you look lost," his youngest Dara said, with a teasing smile breaking the silence, her eyes full of innocent curiosity. "Ah, nothing, my dear. Just thinking," Adeolu replied, his voice cracking slightly. The dinner had progressed, but an undercurrent of tension remained. Gifts were exchanged, and laughter seemed forced, echoing awkwardly through the small room. Morayo, the shining light of the family, gracefully accepted each gift, though her mind danced elsewhere, trying to pinpoint the source of the unease. Her brother, Tunde, observed her closely from across the table. "Sister, you are quiet today," he noted, his voice low, hiding an edge. Morayo forced a smile. "Just tired, Tunde, nothing more." After dinner, as the family scattered, Tunde slid into conversation with their father. They spoke in hushed tones, but Morayo noticed the occasional glances tossed her way. Something in their demeanor suggested more than casual talk, something she needed to understand. "Are you planning something secretive without me?" Morayo approached, trying to keep her voice light. Adeolu merely chuckled, waving her off, but his eyes betrayed him, fear mingled with guilt. That night, Morayo lay awake, staring at the ceiling of her room. A soft knock at the door startled her. It was her mother, Funmi, who stepped in with a quiet grace. "Your father has been restless, Morayo. He worries deeply about things he cannot say," she murmured, smoothing Morayo's hair. "Something feels wrong, Mama," Morayo confessed, her voice barely a whisper, "and it sits at the center of everything today." Funmi sighed deeply. "Patience, my child. Answers come to those who wait." The next morning, Morayo ventured into the bustling markets of Ibadan, hoping to find some clarity among the chatter. She met many familiar faces, but their smiles seemed strained, their greetings a touch too clipped. "Adook, what is it you're hearing about Tunde and the land?" an old friend asked, her voice a mix of curiosity and concern. Morayo frowned. "Land? I don't know anything about it. What have you heard?" Her heart started to race. Back at home, Morayo approached Tunde, catching him off guard as he prepared for the day. "Since when do you keep secrets, brother?" she asked directly, her eyes searching his. Tunde hesitated, his confident facade cracking. "Morayo, it's complicated. Trust me when I say I did it for the family." Frustration welled in Morayo's chest. "Did what, Tunde? Tell me." "Baba and I, we sold the property," Tunde confessed quietly, refusing to meet her eyes. The revelation struck like a physical blow. Morayo had helped their father maintain that land, pour her savings into its upkeep. Now, knowing it was gone, shook her deeply. "How could you sell the family's land without a word?" Her voice wavered, caught between disbelief and anger. "I had no choice. The debts." Tunde's words felt hollow, too rehearsed. "That's not an excuse," Morayo shot back, her heart thundering. "You betrayed me, Tunde. Us." Morayo's world felt as though it was collapsing. The familiar walls of her childhood home grew stifling. Her mother's earlier warnings rang in her ears. She stumbled outside, needing air. The laughter of children playing in the street, the distant call of vendors, everything seemed disconnected from her shattered reality. In her search for answers, Morayo turned to Elder Bisi, a respected voice in the community. She found him under the shade of a large baobab tree, seemingly anticipating her visit. "Elder, I need your counsel," she started, desperation bleeding into her tone. The elder nodded, thoughtful. "Ah, Morayo, there is much you do not yet see, but your battles are just beginning." "Why did my father agree to this?" Morayo asked, each word laced with pain. "This wasn't just property, it was our heritage." "Sometimes fear outgrows wisdom, and they lose sight of what truly matters," Elder Bisi replied carefully. Morayo sat in silence, feeling the weight of those words. Determined to uncover the full scope of her family's betrayal, Morayo returned home, her resolve hardening. She demanded a family meeting, eager to hear her father's justification. Adeolu sat with a bowed head, his spirit visibly eroded. "My daughter, they left us with no choice," he whispered. "The debt collectors would have taken more." "You sacrificed our future for temporary relief," Morayo retorted, "without even telling me." As tempers flared, Funmi intervened, her voice weary. "You must understand, Morayo, the pressure was immense." "No, Mama," Morayo cut in. "What I understand is betrayal." The silence was punctuated by the rustle of leaves from the open window, the outside world oblivious to the family turmoil. Later, filled with hurt and desperation, Morayo walked through familiar paths alone. Each step brought memories of a life now marred by deceit. Her thoughts turned to revenge, not out of choice but survival. On her way back, Morayo encountered Lanra, an old friend and confidant. Seeing him reminded her of simpler times. "Morayo, why the long face, Kya?" he asked, concern etched across his features. She hesitated, then decided to confide in him. "My own blood has betrayed me." Lanra listened, his silence an anchor in her turbulent sea of emotions. As Morayo concluded her story, Lanra leaned closer, eyes dark with understanding. "If you plan to confront them, you won't be alone," he assured. "We will see this through." Morayo nodded, silently thankful for his support. But deep down, she realized the path ahead was fraught with more than she had dared imagine. In the quiet of that realization, the echo of betrayal lingered, a complex web weaving around her heart, spiraling toward an uncertain future. She closed her eyes against the gathering storm, feeling its winds begin to rise. Morayo stood at the edge of her family's compound, the sandy soil cold against her feet. Her heart was a furious drumbeat as she clenched the worn letter her brother had left on the table, the sale agreement of their ancestral land. The very thought of confronting Tunda twisted every sense of fairness she held, and yet bitterness was a fire she could not quell. "Tunde!" she called out, her voice sharp as the dusk settled around them. Tunde appeared from the dim silhouette of the house, bracing himself for the storm he knew was coming. "I knew you'd find out eventually," he said quietly, not yet defeated. Inside the house, the tension was palpable as Adeolu and Funmi listened to the crescendo of voices outside. Adeolu shook his head, weary with guilt and the burden of his choices. "I should have stopped him. Maybe then she wouldn't be out there fighting battles that were never hers to fight," Adeolu said, his voice barely more than a sigh. Funmi placed a hand on his shoulder, her eyes wet with unspoken forgiveness. "It's not too late to reclaim your dignity, Adeolu," she whispered. "The Lord knows we've lost our way, but he listened still." The night deepened, casting long shadows across the compound. Morayo stood unmoved, facing her brother with an anger that burned as fiercely as the lanterns glowing softly in the dark. "I want the truth, Tunda. Was it only the debts, or was there something more?" she demanded. Tunda hesitated, the weight of Morayo's gaze pulling at his conscience. Finally, he admitted, "It was the debt, yes, but also I had hoped to start a new project, one that could help us all, eventually." His voice trailed off under Morayo's incredulous stare. "How could you gamble with our lives like this?" she said, incredulous at his ambition. As Tunda faltered, Lanra arrived, drawn by the angry voices and the sense that this night held more in its grip than just old grievances. His presence was like cool balm on a fevered brow. "He's wrong, Morayo, but revenge won't fix this." Lanra spoke gently but firmly, aware that his words had to cut through the fog of simmering fury. Morayo turned to him, her face a canvas of hurt and confusion. "Then tell me, Lanra, what will fix it? How do I make things right?" "We will get through this together," he continued, offering strength in his words. "But remember, sometimes our greatest strength is not in fighting back, but in letting go." Funmi, stepping out from the shadows, joined the group. Her heart cried out for her children, divided and tormented by the events that had unfolded. "You both carry a burden that can only be lifted by acknowledging the truth," she said, her voice steady. "We have been selfish. We have sinned against each other. We must seek God's wisdom." Her words hung in the air, a quiet wisdom resonating. Tunda looked at his mother, her strength emerging even in weakness. "Mother, he began, but his apology died in his throat. The next morning, Morayo rose early, the heaviness of unresolved anger still woven into her thoughts. She sat quietly at her bedside, a Bible open before her, its pages worn and comforting. "Lord," she murmured, her voice low and trembling, "I don't know how to forgive what's been done. Help me find a way." As she spoke, a single tear fell onto the thin paper, blooming like a flower on the page. Her gaze fell on a passage in Matthew, the words seeming to reach out and touch her heart. "Forgive, and you will be forgiven." The little house felt more like home now, with the early morning sun filtering through shuttered windows. Adeolu sat beside Morayo, seeing the weight she carried now lightened slightly by faith. "Your mother prayed for us all night," Adeolu told her. "She believes there is a path forward, one that doesn't end in more pain." Morayo nodded slowly, her resolve shifting. "Then we must choose that path together," she said. Though the way forward was uncertain, she found strength in the hope that she was not alone. As the family gathered, Tunde approached cautiously. He sought his sister's eyes, finding a hint of the love they'd once shared as children. "I've wronged you, Morayo, all of you. I see that now," he admitted, his voice a fragile truth. "Will you help me make things right?" he continued, his sincerity unfeigned. Morayo's heart twisted. Here was her brother, flawed and striving for redemption. "Only if we do it as a family, Tunde," she replied, her voice a mix of cautious hope and lingering pain. Later, as they worked out the details of how they might reclaim their heritage, an unexpected visitor arrived. It was Pastor Elijah from their community church, a man whose presence often brought an air of peace. "I heard of your troubles," Pastor Elijah said, his eyes kind and knowing. "I believe there are ways beyond this, God's ways. He offers peace, a new beginning." The family listened, the truth in his words a balm to their wounded hearts. The air inside the tiny living room felt charged with change as Pastor Elijah spoke. "Sometimes we hold on too tightly to things we must let go, only to open our hands to be filled with what God has truly destined for us," he said softly. Morayo felt the truth of his words deep in her spirit. It wasn't a matter of forgetting. She did not need to forget what was done, but she could choose to forgive. In the warmth of the afternoon, the tension in the family began to ease. With Pastor Elijah's guidance, they devised a plan to talk to the buyers about returning the land. It was not guaranteed, but it was a start, a step of faith. "There's no certainty in it," Tunde remarked, worry marring his face. "But there is hope," Morayo countered, conviction strengthening her tone. Gathered once more beneath the shade of the baobab, the family prayed. They sought wisdom, they sought strength, and most importantly, they sought reconciliation. As their voices mingled with the rustle of wind through leaves, an unexpected calm settled over Morayo. It was a peace that surpassed understanding, one that whispered of new beginnings. The journey to recover what was lost remained daunting, yet as the glow of the evening sun settled gently over Ibadan, Morayo knew they were walking it together, with God's grace lighting the way. For the first time since everything changed, she saw them not only as a family bound by blood and betrayal, but as one seeking a future anchored in faith. Back home, as the evening quiet wrapped around them, Morayo held the Bible close. The words of Christ whispered through her heart, binding wounds left open far too long. "Revenge nearly consumed me," she confessed quietly to Lunra beside her. "But only through forgiveness have I found peace." Lunra nodded, comfort in his presence. "And that peace is your true strength," he said quietly. "Never let it go." As the stars twinkled against the deep charcoal sky, a new understanding dawned within the family. Though scars remained, each was a reminder of a spiritual journey, a testament not to forgotten pain, but to God's redemptive power. "Yes, revenge takes everything," Morayo whispered to the night. "But Christ, he gives it all back, and more." Her words lingered, unbidden prayers rising as offerings to the stars, a promise of change burgeoning on the horizon. Thank you so much for listening to this powerful story. We really appreciate you and hope you learned something valuable. If you enjoyed this story or want a part 2, don't forget to like and subscribe so you never miss a story. And let us know your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear what this story meant to you. See you next time.